In a small, quiet town nestled along the edge of an expansive forest, there lived an elderly man named Matt. He was a simple soul, one who cherished the slow, predictable rhythm of life and found solace in the tranquil surroundings of his modest wooden cabin. His days were filled with the comfort of silence, punctuated only by the occasional chirping of birds or the rustle of leaves outside his door. Widowed and childless, Matt had learned to accept the solitude that had settled over his life, though the weight of loneliness clung to him like a shadow. For years, Matt had made a habit of waking early to sit on his creaking porch with a hot cup of coffee, greeting the dawn as the sun's first light spilled over the treetops. He would watch the forest's edge, where deer sometimes wandered close and squirrels danced among the branches. In those moments, he felt a faint connection to the world beyond his own walls, though he never imagined himself a part of it. The animals, with their simplicity and innocence, were companions of a sort, always near, yet untouchably distant. One chilly autumn morning, as a cool mist lingered in the air and the ground was scattered with golden leaves, Matt settled into his usual routine. He sipped his coffee, savoring the warmth against the morning chill, when he noticed something unusual. From the corner of his eye, he saw a faint movement near the edge of his porch. His gaze shifted, and he saw her, a thin, frail mother cat with mottled gray fur, limping slowly toward him. Her coat was dirty and patchy, and her once vibrant green eyes were dulled by exhaustion and hunger. She was clearly struggling, each step deliberate and painful. Clutched gently in her mouth was a tiny, helpless kitten, barely a few days old. The kitten's eyes were still closed, and its small body quivered as it hung limply from its mother's jaws. The sight was both heartbreaking and mesmerizing. Matt had never seen such vulnerability so close before. The mother cat, despite her weakened state, continued her slow journey toward him with unwavering determination. It was as if she knew that this doorstep was her final destination, the place she had chosen for reasons Matt could not yet understand. Matt remained frozen, his coffee cup forgotten in his hand as he watched her approach. He could see the toll that life had taken on her. Her thin body was a testament to the hardships she had faced, perhaps surviving on scraps and foraging for her kitten's sake. Every step she took seemed to drain what little energy she had left, yet she pressed on, her gaze focused and filled with a quiet, desperate plea. When the mother cat finally reached the steps of Matt's porch, she paused, her breathing labored and uneven. She gently lowered her kitten onto the cold, rough wooden plank, nudging it closer to the door with a trembling nose. Then she looked up at Matt with a look he would never forget, a gaze full of resignation and unspoken trust. She was placing her last hope in him, a stranger, in a final act of love that transcended any fear or hesitation. The kitten let out a faint, pitiful mew, its tiny voice barely audible against the crisp morning air. The sound was like a fragile thread, binding Matt to this unexpected scene in a way he could hardly comprehend. His heart ached as he looked down at the small creature, so innocent and unaware of the sacrifice its mother was making. The kitten nuzzled instinctively against its mother, finding warmth in her fading presence, as if sensing the gravity of the moment without understanding its full meaning. Matt felt a lump form in his throat, and a tear slipped down his weathered cheek. He hadn't cried in years, but something about this mother cat's gesture, this selfless surrender, shattered the walls he had built around his heart. It was as if she knew her time was running out, and she had chosen him, of all people, to be the one to watch over her child. The realization struck him with a force he hadn't felt since he had lost his wife. It was a bond, raw and immediate, forged not by words but by the depth of a mother's love. The mother cat, sensing her duty was done, curled herself around the kitten one last time. Her body trembled as she struggled to keep her breathing steady, each shallow breath a testament to her endurance. She nuzzled her kitten gently, offering one final gesture of warmth and comfort. The kitten, oblivious to the weight of the moment, nestled into her fur, letting out a soft, contented sigh. Matt could barely breathe as he took in the scene before him. Here was a creature who, despite her own suffering, had given everything for her child. He wondered what her life had been like, what hardships she had endured, and what journey had led her to his doorstep on this particular morning. The questions swirled in his mind, but he knew he would never have the answers. All he knew was that she had trusted him, chosen him to be the guardian of her precious kitten. As he looked down at the pair, something deep within him stirred. He had spent years living a life untouched by others, but in that moment, he felt a connection that transcended words. It was as if this small, struggling family had reached into the depths of his soul and pulled him back into the world, reminding him of the beauty and pain of caring for another. The mother cat's breathing slowed, her chest rising and falling with each shallow breath. Her eyes, once sharp with determination, began to glaze over as the weight of her journey finally took its toll. She looked up at Matt one last time, and in that gaze, he saw a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a bittersweet acceptance. She had done all she could, and now it was up to him. The morning sun began to break through the mist, casting a warm glow over the porch as the mother cat closed her eyes, her body finally relaxing in peace. The kitten, now left with only the lingering warmth of its mother, mewled softly, nudging against her still form. Matt knelt down, his hand trembling as he gently touched the kitten, feeling the tiny, fragile life beneath his fingers. He knew then that he could not turn away, that this small, helpless creature was now his responsibility. As he lifted the kitten into his hands, Matt felt a mixture of sorrow and newfound purpose. He looked down at the mother cat, her body still and serene, and whispered a quiet promise. "I'll take care of him. You did well." In the days that followed, Matt felt his life shift in unexpected ways. The kitten, whom he named Chong, was a tiny, fragile creature, dependent on him for everything. Matt, who had grown accustomed to a solitary existence, now found himself with a new sense of purpose. Every morning, he would prepare a small bottle of warm milk, carefully feeding Chong, feeling a strange mixture of anxiety and tenderness as the kitten drank, its tiny paws kneading the air. Chong's presence filled Matt's home with a soft, almost magical warmth. The once silent rooms now echoed with the soft sounds of little paws and faint mews. At first, Matt found himself overwhelmed, wondering if he was truly capable of caring for such a vulnerable life. He would sit by Chong's side, watching the kitten sleep, feeling an ache in his heart he couldn't quite explain. It was a mix of fear and a fierce protectiveness he hadn't felt in years. But caring for Chong wasn't without challenges. The kitten was weak, often trembling and mewling through the night, and Matt would wake in a panic, rushing to his side to comfort him. He spent countless hours researching how to care for a newborn kitten, his old hands fumbling over the small buttons on his computer as he learned about feeding schedules, warmth, and even the importance of gently massaging the kitten to stimulate its digestion. One night, as Matt held Chong close, he remembered his wife's gentle touch, the way she had always known how to comfort others. He wondered if she was watching over him now, guiding his hands as he cared for this small creature. The memories flooded his mind, and he found himself whispering to Chong about her, sharing stories of a lifelong past, as if the kitten could somehow understand. Yet, the struggle was real. Chong's health was fragile, and Matt noticed signs that worried him. The kitten often grew cold, its small body curling tightly in a bid to conserve warmth. Matt began to fear that Chong, like his mother, was fighting a battle he could not win. He tried everything, keeping the fire stoked, wrapping the kitten in soft blankets, even cradling him against his chest for hours, hoping his heartbeat would offer some comfort. One particularly harsh night, as a cold wind rattled the windows, Chong's tiny body grew limp in his hands. Matt's heart raced as he held the kitten closer, whispering words of encouragement, praying that this small, innocent life would not slip away. The old man hadn't prayed in years, but in that moment, he closed his eyes, his voice a soft murmur of pleading, his heart breaking at the thought of losing this fragile creature who had come to mean so much. Exhaustion began to take its toll on Matt, both physically and emotionally. He spent his days consumed by worry, checking on Chong every few minutes, fearing he might miss some sign of distress. His nights were sleepless, filled with the sounds of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears as he lay awake, alert to every sound Chong made. The solitude he once cherished now felt like a curse, amplifying every fear and doubt in his mind. As the days wore on, Matt noticed a slight improvement in Chong. The kitten's eyes began to open, revealing a pair of bright, curious blue eyes that blinked up at him in wonder. Matt felt a surge of joy, tempered by the fear that it might be fleeting. He was all too aware of how fragile life could be, and each new day with Chong felt like a gift, a reminder of the mother cat's final act of love. However, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. He was growing older, his own strength waning, and he worried about what would happen to Chong if he were no longer there. The thought haunted him, gnawing at his mind as he watched the kitten grow, his small, delicate frame slowly filling out, his soft fur beginning to show hints of the mother cat's familiar gray. The townsfolk, noticing Matt's change in demeanor, began to offer their help. Mrs. Miller, the baker, sent warm milk and scraps, her eyes soft with understanding. She had lost her husband years ago and knew the loneliness that Matt carried. She would often stop by to check on Chong, offering gentle words of encouragement, her presence a quiet reassurance. Others in the community began to leave small offerings at his doorstep: blankets, small toys for the kitten, even a tiny handmade collar with a bell. Despite the support, Matt often felt like he was failing. He was just one man, and his fear of losing Chong intensified with each passing day. He would often sit alone after putting the kitten to sleep, his heart heavy, feeling the weight of the mother cat's trust. She had given everything, and now he was responsible for that precious gift. One evening, after a particularly hard day, Matt sat by the fireplace, Chong nestled in his lap, his small, steady breaths a comfort against the old man's worries. He felt a tear slide down his cheek as he thought of the mother cat, her last moments playing in his mind. He wondered if he was enough, if he could ever live up to the love and sacrifice she had shown. The thought filled him with a deep sorrow, a fear of failing her memory and the little life she had entrusted to him. Yet, despite his doubts, Matt continued to care for Chong with every ounce of strength he had. He spoke to the kitten softly, his voice a steady murmur as he shared stories of the forest, of his past, and of the mother cat's incredible journey to his doorstep. In these moments, he felt a sense of peace, as if somehow she was watching over them, her spirit present in the warmth of the fire and the softness of Chong's fur. But the darkness in Matt's heart lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was nearing a breaking point, that his own frailty would one day betray him. He thought of the people he had lost, of the life he had once dreamed of but had never fully lived. Chong had given him a renewed sense of purpose, yet he couldn't escape the haunting fear that he was unworthy of this chance to love and protect. As the autumn days grew colder, Matt began to prepare himself for the worst. He knew he couldn't stop time, couldn't hold back the inevitable changes that life would bring. But even in his darkest moments, as he held Chong close, he made a silent promise to the mother cat. He would continue to fight, to care for her child as if he were his own, no matter what. The old man was learning that love, even in its most fragile form, was a force that could break through even the deepest isolation. And though he didn't yet know it, Chong's presence was beginning to heal wounds that Matt had long forgotten were there. As winter set in, Matt and Chong settled into a gentle rhythm, finding solace in each other's presence. Chong had grown stronger, his once frail body now filled out with soft, thick fur that shimmered in the dim winter light. He was lively, darting around the cabin, chasing dust particles, and pouncing on Matt's shoes, bringing laughter back into the old man's life. Yet, despite the joy Chong brought, a gnawing fear persisted in Matt's heart, one that kept him awake in the quiet hours of the night. One particularly cold evening, as snow fell in heavy flakes outside, Matt sat by the fire, absently petting Chong, who had nestled comfortably in his lap. The cabin was silent, save for the crackling of the flames, a warm cocoon shielding them from the biting cold beyond the walls. Lost in his thoughts, Matt felt a sudden tightness in his chest, a deep ache that left him breathless. He clutched his chest, his vision blurring as the pain intensified, and he gasped, feeling as though his very heart were betraying him. Chong, sensing something wrong, nudged his head against Matt's hand, his soft mules a desperate attempt to bring comfort. Matt tried to calm his racing heart, whispering soothing words to the kitten even as the world spun around him. He knew, in that terrifying moment, that he was growing weaker, that his body was no longer able to keep up with his will. The fear that had lingered in the back of his mind for weeks now came crashing forward. He might not be there for Chong much longer. After what felt like an eternity, the pain subsided, leaving Matt exhausted and shaken. He realized then that he needed to think of a plan, a way to ensure Chong would be safe, even if he couldn't be there. The thought of leaving the kitten behind tore at his heart, but he knew he had to face reality. His mind raced through options, yet none seemed right. Chong wasn't just a pet. He was family, a bond forged through love and the memory of the mother cat who had trusted him with her child. In the days that followed, Matt began reaching out to the townsfolk who had shown kindness before. He spoke with Mrs. Miller and a few others, subtly gauging if anyone might be willing to take Chong in if the need arose. He hated the idea, but he knew he couldn't leave the kitten alone. To his relief, several people offered their help, touched by the love Matt had shown the kitten. Yet, none of them seemed to understand the depth of his attachment, and each time he left one of these conversations, he felt an ache in his heart, an unwillingness to let Chong go. One morning, as he sat with Chong on the porch, watching the snow blanket the forest, Matt came to a decision. He realized that if he were to leave Chong with someone, it would have to be with someone who truly understood the importance of family and love. He thought of a young woman named Anna who lived on the edge of town, a kind soul who had recently lost her father. She was known for her gentle nature, and he'd seen her rescue a stray dog once, nursing it back to health as if it were her own. Matt felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps she would understand the bond he shared with Chong. Gathering his courage, Matt bundled Chong into a small warm blanket and made his way to Anna's cottage. The walk was slow, each step heavy with the weight of his decision, yet he felt a sense of relief, knowing he was doing what was best for Chong. When he arrived, Anna greeted him warmly, her soft smile filling him with a sense of calm. She listened quietly as he explained the situation, his voice wavering as he shared the story of the mother cat and the journey he and Chong had taken together. Anna's eyes filled with tears as she listened, her hand resting gently on Chong's small head. She assured Matt that if the time came, she would care for Chong, honoring the love and dedication he had shown. Relieved but heartbroken, Matt returned home, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he had made the right choice, even if it meant saying goodbye to the little life that had filled his world with light once more. Days turned into weeks, and winter tightened its grip on the town. Matt grew weaker, his once steady steps now uncertain, yet he clung to his routine with Chong, determined to cherish every remaining moment. He watched as Chong grew more curious, exploring every nook and cranny of the cabin, filling it with life and laughter. The kitten was thriving, a testament to the love that had nurtured him from the beginning. Then, on a bitterly cold night, the snowstorm of the year swept through the town, blanketing everything in white. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and Matt felt a chill settle deep within him. He stoked the fire, pulling Chong close, his hand resting on the kitten's soft fur as they sat together in the warmth of the firelight. In that moment, Matt felt a deep peace, a quiet acceptance of whatever was to come. He had done all he could, and he knew the mother cat spirit would be there, watching over them both. As the night wore on, Matt drifted into a deep sleep, his hand still resting on Chong's small body. He dreamed of the mother cat, her gentle eyes watching him, filled with gratitude and a sense of calm. She seemed to whisper words he couldn't quite hear, but he felt their meaning deep in his soul, a message of love, of trust, and of the enduring bond they shared. When Matt awoke, the storm had passed, and the world outside was silent and serene. Chong lay curled against him, his small body warm and steady, a beacon of life in the stillness of the room. Matt felt a rush of emotion, knowing that he had been given one more day, one more chance to love and care for the small creature who had come into his life by fate. In that quiet moment, Matt made a final decision. He would spend every remaining day with Chong, pouring all the love and care he had left into the kitten's life. He realized that the bond they shared was a gift, one that had healed him as much as it had saved Chong. And no matter what the future held, he would honor the mother cat's trust by living fully, embracing each day with the little soul she had left in his care. The days that followed were filled with an unspoken purpose. Matt, though his body grew weaker, embraced each moment with Chong, finding strength in their small routines and shared silence. As the snow continued to blanket the world outside, they found warmth in each other, their bond growing deeper with every passing day. For the first time in years, Matt felt as though he were truly living again, his heart filled with a love that defied words. Chong, with his playful antics and boundless curiosity, brought light to the darkest corners of Matt's cabin. The kitten was a tiny ball of energy, chasing after anything that moved, and each time he pounced or tumbled, Matt couldn't help but laugh. In these moments, he felt a youthful joy he hadn't experienced in decades, a reminder of all the beauty he had once taken for granted. The townspeople continued to visit, bringing small gifts and offering their support, touched by the unusual friendship between the old man and the tiny cat. Word had spread about Matt's dedication to Chong, and many were moved by the story of the mother cat's sacrifice. People who had once kept their distance now stopped by regularly, sharing stories, laughter, and warmth, bringing life and color back into Matt's once solitary world. One afternoon, Anna visited Matt, bringing a small bag of handmade cat treats. She watched as Chong bounded around the room, chasing a piece of yarn with relentless enthusiasm. Matt sat nearby, his face alight with pride and affection as he observed the kitten's playful energy. Anna noticed the change in him, a lightness in his gaze, a peace that hadn't been there before. Sitting beside him, she gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "You've done so much for him, Matt. I don't think I've ever seen a love as pure as the one between you and Chong," she said softly, her words filled with admiration. Matt nodded, his eyes misty as he watched Chong. "He saved me, Anna, in ways I can't explain. That mother cat, she knew something I didn't realize myself." He paused, his voice wavering with emotion. "She brought him here, trusted me to care for him, and in doing so, she gave me back a part of myself I thought was lost forever." Anna smiled, understanding the depth of his words. She knew that Chong had become more than just a companion. He was a bridge between the past and the present, a living testament to the power of love and sacrifice. As winter slowly released its grip on the town, the snow began to melt, giving way to hints of green peeking through the frost. Matt could feel the subtle change in the air, the promise of spring stirring something deep within him. He knew that his time with Chong was precious, each day a gift he cherished with all his heart. The warmth of the season brought new life to the forest, and as the first flowers bloomed, Matt took Chong outside for the first time, introducing him to the world beyond the cabin walls. Chong's eyes grew wide with wonder as he stepped onto the grass, his little paws pressing into the soft earth. Matt watched, his heart swelling with pride as the kitten explored, his every movement a testament to the resilience and beauty of life. In that moment, Matt felt a profound sense of peace, a knowledge that he had fulfilled the promise he had made to the mother cat all those months ago. As the days grew warmer, Matt and Chong continued their adventures outside, exploring the familiar paths along the forest's edge. The townspeople would wave and call out greetings, their smiles a reflection of the joy they felt in seeing the old man so alive. Matt, once isolated and withdrawn, had become a beloved figure, his life intertwined with the people and creatures around him in a way he never could have imagined. One afternoon, as Matt and Chong sat by a small brook, he felt a familiar ache in his chest. The sensation was gentle, a quiet reminder that time was slipping away, but it didn't bring fear or sadness. Instead, he felt a sense of fulfillment, a quiet acceptance of life's natural course. He looked down at Chong, who was batting at a stray leaf floating in the water, his small face filled with determination and innocence. In that moment, Matt spoke aloud, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Thank you, little one, for everything." He reached down, gently stroking Chong's fur, feeling the warmth and softness beneath his fingertips. The kitten looked up at him, his bright eyes filled with a trust that melted Matt's heart. Returning to the cabin that evening, Matt felt a contentment he hadn't known in years. He prepared a small meal, sharing bits of it with Chong, who meowed happily in response. As they settled in for the night, Matt felt the presence of the mother cat, a comforting warmth that filled the room, her spirit woven into the love he now shared with her child. And as the days turned into weeks, Matt continued to care for Chong, his heart filled with a quiet joy. He knew that life was fragile, that each moment was a gift, and he was grateful for every second he spent with the small creature who had brought him back to life. The promise he had made to the mother cat had been fulfilled, and in doing so, he had found a renewed purpose, a love that transcended the boundaries of time and space. As the years passed, Chong grew from a tiny kitten into a strong, graceful cat, his fur thick and shining, his eyes still as bright and full of wonder as they had been on his first day exploring the grass. He became Matt's constant companion, a steady presence by his side through every season. Together, they shared countless quiet moments, the bond between them deepening with every passing day. Matt's health continued to fade with time, but he accepted it with a peaceful heart. Each day, he found himself reflecting on the journey that had led him here, to this small, yet profoundly meaningful life with Chong. He thought of the mother cat often, of her unwavering love and sacrifice, and he felt an overwhelming gratitude for the gift she had given him. She had not only saved her kitten, she had saved him as well, bringing light and love back into his world. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Matt sat by the fire with Chong curled up in his lap. The air was filled with a serene stillness, a quiet that felt like a gentle farewell. He looked down at Chong, his hand resting gently on the cat's soft fur, and felt a calm acceptance. He whispered softly, his voice filled with love, "Thank you, my friend, for everything." That night, Matt passed peacefully, his heart at rest, his spirit filled with the joy and love he had shared with Chong. In the days that followed, the townsfolk gathered to say goodbye to the old man who had once been so lonely, but who had found purpose and connection in the love of a tiny, fragile kitten. Anna, true to her promise, took Chong in, and he settled into her home, his presence a living memory of Matt and the mother cat's sacrifice. And in the quiet of the night, as Chonga lay by the fire, he seemed to sense their presence, a gentle warmth that filled the room, a reminder of the enduring power of love, a love that would live on in every purr, every gentle nuzzle, and every quiet moment by the fire. It's an honor to be able to create content for you. If you want to support the channel even more, you can follow the instructions that I will leave on the pinned comment. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love you all.